Captain Elias Rourke never thought he would end up a prisoner in the cold emptiness of space. Once he was a proud soldier of Earth, a leader trusted by his team and respected by his commanders. But now, he was locked inside Black Core Station, a dark metal prison floating silently near a dying star, far from home. Black Core was not like any prison Elias had heard about. It was built by the Ralzek Dominion, a powerful alien empire that ruled many star systems. The Ralzek people looked down on humans, calling them reckless and weak. Elias knew they hated everything about humanity, especially Earth soldiers. Here, prisoners were not just kept, they were broken. Elias had been captured during a mission that was meant to bring peace. He and his crew had traveled to meet the Ralzek leaders to talk about ending years of war. But something went wrong. A hidden trap, a betrayal. His team was attacked and Elias was taken alive, the only one left standing. Now the cold metal walls of Black Core closed around him like chains he could not see. Guards watched his every move, and strange machines hummed in the background. His hands were shackled to the floor, but his mind was free. He could not let his spirit be caged. For days, Elias sat alone in his small cell. He learned to ignore the loud voices and the cruel laughter that echoed through the prison corridors. He watched the other prisoners too. Aliens from many worlds, all broken in their own way. Some had given up hope. But Elias was different. He remembered his training, the stories of Earth's great warriors, and the promise he made to himself. He would survive. The prison's commander, a tall, cold Ralzek named Vrak, visited him often. Vrak did not speak much, but made it clear that Elias was a tool for their games. The Dominion loved to pit prisoners against each other for sport, watching them fight and suffer for their amusement. Elias had refused to play their game. That had made him a target. One evening, the heavy cell door opened with a loud clang. 2 guards entered and dragged Elias out. His muscles ached from sitting too long, but he did not resist. He had learned that fighting without a plan only meant more pain. They led him down long, dark halls filled with strange lights and cold metal. The air smelled sharp, like burnt circuits and stale fear. At the end of the corridor, Elias saw a large arena, a distai, circular space surrounded by high walls and bright lights. Prisoners were gathered, waiting nervously. Some looked hopeful, some angry, and some defeated. Elias was pushed into the center. His eyes adjusted to the bright light, and he saw the crowd watching. Not just prisoners, but Ralzek soldiers, scientists, and even officers from other alien races. The Elias moved carefully, remembering his training. He didn't want to kill, but he had to defend himself. The alien was strong, but slow. Elias used quick moves, dodging and striking when he could. The crowd cheered louder with every hit. Then, Elias saw something unexpected. The alien fighter did not want to fight either. His eyes showed fear and sadness. They were both prisoners, forced into a battle they did not choose. For a moment, Elias hesitated. That hesitation was enough. The alien swung a powerful claw, knocking Elias to the ground. Pain shot through his side, but he pushed himself up. The fight was far from over. Suddenly, alarms blared through the station. Guards rushed in, breaking up the fight. Elias was dragged away before the alien could finish him. The crowd's cheers turned to boos and whispers. The prisoners knew something important had just happened. Back in his cell, Elias thought about the alien. He wondered about the story behind those fearful eyes. In Black Core Station, everyone was trapped by chains, some visible, some invisible. But Elias knew that no chain could hold a free spirit forever. As he lay on the cold floor, he made a silent promise. He would find a way out of this prison, not just for himself, but for all those who suffered here. He would fight, not just with his fists, but with hope, because in the darkest places, hope is the strongest weapon. Days passed in the cold halls of Black Core Station. Captain Elias Rourke kept his eyes open, watching everything around him. The guards still treated him like a dangerous animal, but they did not break his spirit. He had learned one important truth. To survive here, he needed allies. One evening, the heavy door of his cell opened again. This time, the guards didn't just come for him. They brought someone else, a young girl with violet eyes that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. She looked small and fragile, but there was something strange about her, something that made Elias stop and stare. The girl's name was Scifi. She belonged to a peaceful alien race called the Illyrians, known for their calm minds and deep connection to nature. But Scifi was not free. She was a prisoner like Elias, and worse, she was used by the Ralzek Dominion for experiments. Scifi was thin, her skin pale, and marked with tiny scars from the lab tests. Her violet eyes looked at Elias with fear and sadness, but also a flicker of hope. The guards pushed them into a small room with metal walls and harsh lights. "Train," one guard barked at Elias, "or watch her suffer." Elias's heart tightened. The Dominion wanted him to hurt Scifi in training fights. If he did not obey, they said she would pay the price. The threat was clear. Elias was caught in a trap. Protect the girl, or lose everything. At first, Elias refused. He would never harm someone weaker, especially not an innocent child. But the guards did not listen. They forced him into a strange chamber filled with machines and strange weapons. Scifi was there too, trembling but trying to stand strong. Their first training fight began slowly. The guards wanted Elias to attack, but he held back. Scifi's violet eyes widened in surprise. She had never seen a human act like this in Black Corps. Most prisoners fought for survival or were broken by the system, but Elias fought to protect. Each day, the sessions grew harder. The Dominion scientists watched eagerly, waiting for Elias to lose control. They wanted him to strike Scifi hard enough to break her spirit, but Elias found other ways. He moved quickly to block blows without hurting her, used his own body to shield her from harm, and even created simple signals to communicate. Small signs of trust in a place built on pain. Slowly, a fragile friendship grew between them. Scifi began to speak in broken words. "Earth," she whispered one day. "Home?" Elias nodded. "Yes. Earth is where I come from. A place with blue skies and tall trees." Scifi smiled faintly. She had never seen such a world, only heard stories from other prisoners. Elias described everything he could: birds singing, rivers flowing, sunlight warm on the skin. For a moment, the cold walls seemed to disappear, replaced by dreams of freedom. But the Dominion was not patient. One night, the neural collars were locked onto Scifi's neck. The collars were cruel devices. Whenever Elias refused to obey orders to hurt her, the collar sent a painful electric shock to Scifi. It was their way to force him to obey. Elias felt a deep anger rise inside him, but he did not give up. He began looking at security drones patrolling the halls. If caught, they would be punished severely. Elias held Scifi's hand gently. "We have to be careful, trust me." She nodded, her violet eyes shining with determination. That night, they moved through the shadows of Black Corps Station. Elias's training as a soldier helped him avoid guards and security traps. Scifi used her small size and quick reflexes to slip past locked doors. Together, they were a team, one fighting with skill, the other with heart. As they reached the corridor, leading to the prison's main control room, they heard footsteps behind them. A guard shouted, "Stop them!" Elias grabbed Scifi and pulled her into a narrow maintenance shaft. They crawled through the tight space, hearts pounding. Outside, they could hear the chaos growing. The prisoners were rising, inspired by the courage of a human and a violet-eyed girl. For the first time in a long while, Elias felt something he thought was lost: hope. They were not just prisoners. They were fighters. And together they might just change everything. After their daring escape through the maintenance shaft, Elias and Scifi found themselves back in the prison corridors of Black Corps Station. The noise of rebellion echoed behind them. Shouts, alarms, and the clash of metal filled the air. The prisoners were fighting, inspired by the spark Elias and Scifi had ignited, but the station was still dangerous. Every step they took was watched by guards and hidden cameras. The cold, dark halls felt like a maze, with danger around every corner. Elias looked down at Scifi. Though small and fragile-looking, she held her head high. The violet glow in her eyes was brighter than ever. She had begun to understand the fight they were in. It was not just about escaping. It was about breaking free from chains, both visible and invisible. But the Dominion had one more cruel trick. That same day, the scientists returned with a new device, a neural link collar designed to control Scifi's actions. The collar was more than just a shock collar. It was linked directly to her nervous system. If Elias disobeyed any order, the collar would cause her unbearable pain. It was a weapon meant to force obedience through fear. The guards forced the collar around Scifi's neck. She flinched but said nothing. Elias's heart tightened with anger and sorrow. "You will obey," the lead scientist said coldly. "Hurt her when ordered, or watch her suffer." Elias clenched his fists. The weight of the collar was a heavy chain, not just around Scifi's neck but around his own spirit. He could feel the pressure to give in, to follow the orders and end our pain. But Elias was not a man who gave up. He looked into Scifi's violet eyes. "I won't let them break us." In the days that followed, Elias was forced to train with Scifi again. The Dominion watched closely, waiting for him to fail. Each time they ordered Elias to strike her, he found a way to protect her. He moved quickly to block his attacks or use techniques that would not cause real harm. Sometimes he would pretend to hit her but pull back at the last moment. The collar sent shocks when he did not obey fully, and Scifi's face twisted in pain. Elias's heart ached, but he kept fighting in small, careful ways. The guards grew angry and frustrated. They did not understand how Elias could resist breaking Scifi's spirit. Among the prisoners, rumors began to spread. Elias was no longer just a fighter. He was a symbol of resistance, a man who refused to obey cruel orders even when it hurt those he cared about. One night, when the station was quiet, Elias and Scifi shared a small moment of peace. They sat in the corner of the training room, hidden from the cameras. Scifi touched the collar gently. "It hurts, because you do not want to hurt me." Elias nodded. "They think pain can control us, but they do not know what we have." Scifi looked at him curiously. "What?" "Trust," Elias said softly. "Hope. The strength to keep going, even when things are hard." Scifi smiled, a real smile this time. "I trust you, Elias." That simple phrase gave Elias new courage. He began to look for ways to fight the collar's control. Using his knowledge of technology from Earth, he studied the collar during training. He watched how it sent signals and tried to find patterns. One day, during a session, Elias noticed something. The collar's power had limits. If he moved in certain ways or timed his actions just right, the shocks could be lessened or even avoided. He shared this with Scifi in whispers. "We can outsmart them." Together, they practiced silent signals and slow movements to trick the collar. It was dangerous. One mistake would cause pain, but it gave them hope. Meanwhile, the rebellion outside the training rooms was growing. Prisoners from many alien species began to rise up quietly. They whispered about Elias, the human who would not break. Some even sent secret messages offering help. Elias realized that the fight was no longer just his and Scifi's. It was becoming a movement. But the Dominion would not give up easily. One day, the lead scientist visited Elias alone. "You will obey. You will hurt her, or you will watch her die." Elias looked the scientist in the eye. "I will not hurt her." The scientist smiled coldly. "Then you will lose everything." Elias's heart pounded, but his voice was steady. "Then I will fight to the end." As the scientist left, Elias knew the time was coming. The chains of obedience were tightening, but he was ready to break them. The days on Black Core Station felt longer and darker than ever before. Captain Elias Rourke and Scifi grew closer with every moment. Despite the dangers around them, a quiet strength bloomed between the two prisoners. Scifi's violet eyes often searched Elias's face, seeking hope in the harsh world they were trapped in. Elias knew he had to keep her spirit alive. The Dominion tried to break both of them, but he would not allow it. He had seen too much pain, and he would not let it consume Scifi. One evening, as the harsh lights dimmed and the sounds of the station quieted, Elias sat beside Scifi in the small room they were allowed for training. The cold metal walls pressed in on them, but Elias began to speak softly about Earth. "Earth is not like this place," Elias said quietly. "It's full of life, trees, oceans, and wide skies. The stars look different there, but the sun is warm. People laugh, sing, and dream." Scifi listened carefully, her violet eyes wide. "Tell me more," she whispered. Elias smiled gently. "On Earth we have forests where the leaves change color every year. There are animals that run fast, birds that fly high, and rivers that flow with fresh water. I remember nights lying under the stirruge even when things are hard. That's what makes Earth special." Scifi's face softened. For a moment the pain of the collar and the fear of Blackcore seemed far away. She imagined the blue sky and green trees Elias described, a place where she could be free. That night Elias made a promise to himself. He would get them both out of this prison. He would carry Earth's hope with him, no matter the cost. But the Dominion had darker plans. The rebellion among the prisoners was growing louder. The guards tightened security and punishments became harsher. Elias knew they had to act carefully. One day the scientists ordered Elias to enter the arena again, this time with Scifi as his opponent. The arena was a brutal place, designed to break spirits and entertain the cruel watchers of Blackcore. The crowd would watch every move, waiting for Elias to hurt the girl he had sworn to protect. The order was clear. Elias had to fight Scifi and show the Dominion their power. Elias looked at Scifi, who met his gaze without fear. "We fight," she said softly, "but not to hurt." The crowd cheered as the two entered the arena. Bright lights shone down on them, and the heavy metal gates closed behind them. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the fight began. Elias moved carefully, dodging and blocking. Scifi's eyes glowed with a quiet strength as she used her psychic powers to shield herself. They fought not with hatred, but with respect, each protecting the other. The crowd grew restless. They wanted violence, but Elias and Scifi refused to give them what they wanted. The Dominion officers grew angry. They signaled to the guards, demanding Elias break the rules. The neural collar sent shocks to Scifi, causing her to cry out in pain. Elias's heart shattered. He wanted to scream at the guards, to fight back, but he held his anger inside. He moved faster, shielding Scifi from every attack, even when the collar punished her. The crowd watched in silence. Some prisoners whispered, inspired by the courage they saw. Suddenly Elias heard a voice in his head, Scifi's voice, soft but clear. "Trust yourself. We can be free." Elias realized then that Scifi's powers were stronger than he thought. Her psychic abilities could protect them both, but only if they worked together. He took a deep breath and changed his strategy. Instead of fighting, he used his knowledge of the station and its machines to confuse the guards. Scifi's shields grew stronger, pushing back the attacks and protecting them from harm. The arena erupted into chaos. Guards rushed in to stop the fight, but Elias and Scifi stood firm. Their courage sparked hope in the prisoners watching from the cells and control rooms. As the guards closed in, Elias shouted, "This ends now!" With a sudden burst of strength, Elias broke free from the chains that held him, pulling Scifi with him. The two ran toward the exit of the arena, dodging guards and alarms. Their escape was not easy. The station shook with the sounds of battle. But Elias and Scifi were no longer alone. Prisoners began rising up following their lead. As they reached a corridor leading deeper into the station, Elias glanced at Scifi. Her violet eyes shone with determination. "We fight for more than freedom now," Elias said. "We fight for hope." Together they disappeared into the shadows of Blackcore Station, ready to face whatever came next. The corridors of Blackcore Station echoed with footsteps and whispers. Elias and Scifi moved quickly, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and hope. Behind them, the rebellion was growing louder, prisoners of many races rising against their cruel captors. Elias could feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was a leader. Every move they made mattered. Every choice could mean life or death, not just for them, but for everyone trapped inside Blackcore. Scifi stayed close beside him. Her violet eyes were sharp and alert. The neural collar around her neck still hummed faintly, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. But she refused to let it control her. Together, they reached a small room filled with blinking lights and strange machines, the control center of the station. Elias knew that if they could take over this room, they could unlock doors, disable security systems, and give the prisoners a real chance to escape. Elias worked quickly, his hands moving over the controls with skill he didn't know he still had. Scifi focused her mind, using her psychic abilities to shield Elias from any electronic traps or alarms. The screens flickered, showing the faces of guards and prisoners alike. Elias's heart clenched when he saw some prisoners being punished, their faces full of pain and fear. But he also saw hope, prisoners standing tall, ready to fight. A voice crackled over the station's loudspeakers. "Attention, prisoners," the cold voice said. "Resistance is futile. Submit now, or face destruction." Elias felt a surge of anger. "We will never submit," he whispered. Scifi touched his arm gently. "We have a chance. We must be smart." They began unlocking cell doors one by one. The freed prisoners emerged cautiously, their faces lighting up with relief and determination. Elias spoke to them, sharing words of courage and hope. "We are stronger together," he said. "The Dominion may have chains, but they cannot hold our spirit." The rebellion spread through the station like wildfire. Prisoners who had been silent for years found their voices. They took weapons from guard stations and prepared to fight. But the Dominion was not blind. Soon, alarms blared again, and guards poured into the corridors, weapons ready. Elias and Scifi stood at the center of the chaos, ready to defend the new hope they had created. The battle was fierce but different from the ones Elias had known before. This fight was not about hatred or revenge. It was about freedom and unity. Elias fought with skill, protecting Scifi and the prisoners. Scifi used her psychic powers to confuse the guards and shield the rebels. At one point, Elias faced Vrak, the cold Ralzek commander who had once imprisoned him. Vrak sneered. "You think you can break the Dominion? You are weak." Elias's eyes burned with determination. "You underestimate what it means to be human." The two clashed, metal ringing against metal. Elias was faster and smarter, fighting not just with strength but with heart. Nearby, Scifi focused her energy, breaking the neural collars that held other prisoners. One by one, the chains of control shattered. The prisoners rallied, their courage growing with every freed comrade. Finally, the Dominion forces began to retreat. The station shook as control systems failed and power flickered. Elias and Scifi stood together, breathing heavily but victorious, for now. Scifi looked at Elias. "This is only the beginning." Elias nodded. "The fight for freedom never ends. But today, we won." Outside the control center, the prisoners gathered, their faces hopeful and determined. Elias raised his hand. "We are free. Together, we will find a way home." The rebellion had awakened something powerful, a spark of hope that could never be extinguished. The victory in the control room sent waves of hope through Blackcore Station. Prisoners who had long suffered under the Dominion's harsh rule felt a new strength rising inside them. But Elias and Scifi knew this was just the beginning. The station was still full of dangers, and their enemies were far from defeated. Elias looked around at the faces of the freed prisoners. Some were wounded, others tired, but all had fire in their eyes. They wanted freedom, and they would fight for it. "We must move quickly," Elias said. "The Dominion will send reinforcements soon. We have to find a way off this station." Scifi nodded, her violet eyes glowing softly. "I feel a place inside the station. Something hidden. It may help us." Elias was curious. "Show me." Scifi closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. She sent a wave of psychic energy forward, searching through the station's hidden corners. After a moment, she opened her eyes and pointed to a map on one of the screens. "There," she said. "A hidden hangar. Large ships are kept there, but the guards do not watch closely." Elias smiled. "That's our chance." Together, Elias, Scifi, and a small group of trusted prisoners moved through the station's corridors. They avoided patrols and used the control room systems to unlock doors and disable alarms. As they approached the hidden hangar, they saw the large ships, sleek and powerful, ready for flight. The prisoners felt a surge of hope. If they could reach those ships, they could escape and maybe even return home, but the Dominion was not willing to lose so easily. Suddenly, alarms blared again. The station shook as Dominion soldiers poured into the corridors. The fight was fierce. Elias and the prisoners fought with everything they had. Scifi's psychic shields protected the group from heavy fire, while Elias used his combat skills to take down enemies one by one. In the chaos, Elias noticed a squad of soldiers moving toward Scifi. Without hesitation, he ran to protect her, blocking their path. "Leave her alone," Elias shouted as he faced the attackers. The battle raged on, but the prisoners' courage never wavered. Finally, they reached the hangar doors. Elias quickly worked to open them. With a loud hiss, the massive doors slid open, revealing the stars. Outside, the vast, endless space that promised freedom. The prisoners rushed forward, boarding the ships. Elias and Scifi climbed into the cockpit of the largest ship, the control panel lighting up before them. Elias glanced at Scifi. "Are you ready?" She nodded. Together. Elias engaged the engines, feeling the powerful hum as the ship lifted off. The station grew smaller beneath them and the cold darkness of space surrounded them. But freedom was not guaranteed yet. The Dominion's fighters appeared, fast and deadly, chasing after the escaping prisoners. Laser beams flashed across the void. Elias gripped the controls, his mind sharp and steady. Scifi used her psychic powers to confuse the enemy pilots, making them lose aim and crash into one another. The battle was intense, but Elias and Scifi's teamwork was stronger. They guided the prisoners through the fight, dodging and weaving through the stars. After what felt like hours, the Dominion's fighters retreated, unable to match the prisoners' courage and skill. The ship finally settled into a steady course, toward a distant star system, a chance to find a new home. Elias looked at Scifi, relief and hope shining in his eyes. "We did it." Scifi smiled, her violet eyes bright. "We are free." But Elias knew their journey was far from over. The scars of Black Core Station would stay with them, and the fight for freedom would continue. On new worlds, among new stars. As the ship sailed through space, Elias thought about Earth, about the friends they had lost and those they hoped to save. He made a silent promise to himself and to Scifi. "No one will ever force us to hurt those we care about. No one will break our chains." Together they looked forward, toward hope, freedom, and a future they would build with their own hands. The stars stretched endlessly before them as the stolen ship glided through space. Elias and Scifi sat side by side in the cockpit, both tired but filled with a new hope. The prisoners they had rescued were settling into the ship's cabins, whispering excitedly about the future. Elias stared out at the glowing stars and took a deep breath. They had escaped Black Core Station, but the real journey was just beginning. He looked over at Scifi. Her violet eyes were calm but alert. The collar around her neck had been removed during the chaos in the hangar, but the memories of pain and fear still lingered. "We made it," Elias said softly. "But where do we go now?" Scifi's voice was steady. "Somewhere safe, somewhere we can rebuild." Elias nodded. "Earth is far away. We may never get back." Sailari smiled faintly. Home is where we make it. The prisoners gathered, in the ship's common area, faces glowing with relief and cautious optimism. They began to talk about their dreams, of freedom, peace, and a future where no one would be forced to live in fear. Elias took the lead, sharing plans to find a habitable planet. He promised they would create a community based on trust and respect, a place where different species could live together as equals. Days passed as the ship traveled through uncharted space. The passengers worked together, cleaning, fixing, and preparing for their new lives. Sailari taught the others how to protect themselves using her psychic skills, while Elias trained them in basic defense. One evening, as the ship's artificial sun set, Elias and Sailari stood together on the observation deck. The silence between them was comfortable, a peaceful moment in the midst of uncertainty. Sailari turned to Elias. "You changed everything. You didn't just fight the Dominion, you fought for us all." Elias smiled. "I only did what was right. No one should be forced to hurt others. No one should live in chains." Sailari's eyes glowed softly. "Your courage gave us hope. You showed us that kindness is stronger than cruelty." Elias looked up at the stars. "I hope we can build a new world, one where everyone is free." Suddenly, the ship's sensors picked up a signal, a small planet, rich with water and green.
Forests.
It was not Earth, but it was beautiful. Elias's heart leapt. This could be our new home. The ship began its descent toward the planet's surface. As they entered the atmosphere, the passengers gathered to watch the new world unfold beneath them. The land was vibrant and alive, full of promise. Rivers sparkled under the sun, and mountains stretched toward the sky. When the ship landed, Elias, Sailari, and the others stepped out onto the soft grass. The air was fresh and the sky was wide and open. For the first time in a long time, they felt truly free. Elias looked at the faces around him, faces filled with hope, courage, and a determination to build something better. "We will start here," Elias said. "Together." Sailari smiled. "A new dawn for all of us." As the sun rose over the new world, Elias felt a deep peace. The chains of the past were broken, and a future full of possibility lay ahead. They had fought for freedom, for kindness, and for hope. Now they would build a home where no one would ever be forced to hurt another. A home where everyone could live in peace. And so, beneath the endless stars, their story truly began.